Imagine walking into a cafe on a rainy afternoon. The room is full, every table occupied, the hum of espresso machines in the background, the scent of freshly ground coffee lingering in the air. But instead of lively chatter, there's an eerie silence. Heads are bent over screens, thumbs scrolling, faces illuminated by the cold glow of smartphones. A couple sits side by side, sharing a table, but not a single word. A group of friends laughs at memes on their phones, not at each other's jokes. This is the paradox of our time. We've never been more connected, yet we've never felt more alone. In 2023, the World Health Organization made a startling declaration. Loneliness, they announced, is now a global public health crisis. One that poses a greater risk to life expectancy than obesity, physical inactivity, or even smoking. Let that sink in. We're living in an age where you can video call someone on the other side of the planet, order groceries with a voice command, or summon a ride in seconds. But beneath the surface of this hyper-connected world, millions are drowning in silence. A 2024 MIT study revealed something chilling. 60% of millennials and Gen Z report feeling lonelier after scrolling through social media than they do sitting alone in a quiet room. Why? Because a heart emoji can't replicate the warmth of a hug. A comment section can't mirror the safety of a friend's steady gaze when you admit, "I'm not okay." But loneliness isn't just about physical isolation. It's about emotional invisibility. Think about the last time someone asked, "How are you?" and you replied, "Fine," even though your world was falling apart. Or the co-worker who vents daily about their workload, but never pauses to ask about yours. We're surrounded by people speaking a language of surface-level niceties, while our deeper selves scream to be heard. This disconnect isn't just sad, it's dangerous. Chronic loneliness triggers a biological chain reaction. Cortisol, the stress hormone, floods our systems. Our immune defenses crumble. The brain's amygdala, the primal alarm bell for threats, goes into overdrive, interpreting neutral interactions as rejection. This is why a vague text like "we need to talk" can send us into a spiral of anxiety. It's why we'd rather cancel plans than risk awkward small talk. We've become prisoners of our own hypervigilance, convinced that vulnerability will lead to pain. But here's the twist. The cure isn't more followers, more notifications, or more curated perfection. It's something far more primal, something we've forgotten how to use. Emotional intelligence. This isn't about reciting self-help mantras or memorizing therapy jargon. It's about rewiring how we connect with ourselves and others. Picture this. A skill that lets you walk into a room and sense the unspoken grief behind someone's smile. A tool that helps you say, "I'm hurt," instead of slamming doors. A practice that turns awkward silences into moments of genuine curiosity. This is the power of emotional intelligence, the missing bridge between existing near people and truly living with them. Let's get specific. Take Sarah, a 28-year-old nurse from Chicago. During the pandemic, she worked 12-hour shifts in a COVID ward surrounded by colleagues and patients, yet she describes that time as the loneliest of her life. "We were all too exhausted to talk," she says. "We'd nod in the hallway, but no one asked, 'How are you holding up?' It was like we became robots." Sarah's story isn't unique. A 2023 UCLA study found that 70% of healthcare workers developed empathy fatigue, a numbness to emotions, both theirs and others. This isn't just burnout. It's a societal warning sign. When we stop seeing each other's humanity, we stop seeing our own. Now consider the ripple effects. Schools report skyrocketing rates of student anxiety, with teens preferring Snapchat streaks to face-to-face conversations. Corporations spend millions on team-building retreats, while employees eat lunch alone at their desks. Dating apps promise connection, but leave users feeling disposable. Swipe left, swipe right, repeat. The common thread: a deficit of emotional intelligence. We've outsourced our emotional lives to algorithms, reducing complex human experiences to likes, shares, and biotags. But this isn't a doom and gloom lecture. There's hope, and it starts with a simple question. Not "how are you," but "how are you really?" This is the essence of emotional intelligence. The courage to look beyond the surface, to replace "I'm fine" with "I'm struggling today," to sit with someone's pain instead of rushing to fix it, to recognize that a coworker's snappish tone might mean they're grieving, not rude. This skill isn't innate, it's learned. And in a world where loneliness is deadlier than smoking, it's a matter of survival. Let's pause here. Close your eyes and think, when was the last time you felt truly seen? Not just acknowledged, not just heard. Seen. The kind of moment where someone looked past your words and sensed the storm beneath. If you're struggling to remember, you're not alone. But that's about to change. Picture a crowded emergency room during a blackout. The power's out, machines are silent, and for the first time in hours, the staff can't rely on beeping monitors to tell them who needs help most. Instead, they're forced to do something radical. Look at each other. A nurse notices a resident's trembling hands and says, "Take 5 minutes. Breathe." A doctor kneels beside a frightened child, matching her shallow breaths until they sink. In that darkness, stripped of technology, they rediscover an ancient tool far more precise than any heart rate monitor: emotional intelligence. This isn't a feel-good metaphor, it's science. A 2023 Yale study tracked 10,000 adults for a decade and found that those with high emotional intelligence had 30% stronger marriages, 50% lower rates of burnout, and were 65% more likely to survive cardiac arrest. Why? Because EI isn't about being nice or sensitive. It's about reading the room and yourself with the precision of a neurosurgeon. Think of it as your brain's built-in radar for emotional weather patterns. Is your partner's quiet mood a passing cloud of stress or a gathering storm of resentment? Is your own irritability really about the traffic, or is it fear about that looming layoff? Dr. Brené Brown, who spent decades researching vulnerability, puts it bluntly. Emotional intelligence is the difference between hearing "I'm fine" and sensing the earthquake beneath it. In her landmark study of 2,200 leaders, she found that teams led by emotionally intelligent managers reported 80% higher job satisfaction, not because those managers were softer, but because they normalized asking, "What do you need right now?" during crises. One CEO she interviewed halted a boardroom meltdown by saying, "Let's pause. Half of us are reacting to this merger like it's a divorce. Let's name that fear before we proceed." But here's where most people get EI wrong. It's not about endless empathy or absorbing others' pain. In fact, the highest EI individuals are ruthlessly protective of their boundaries. Take firefighters, a profession where misreading emotions can cost lives. Research from the University of Houston found that veteran firefighters excel, not because they're emotionally available, but because they've mastered strategic detachment. They can comfort a traumatized family 1 minute, then compartmentalize to save their own crew the next. As Captain Maria Gonzalez puts it, empathy without boundaries is like running into a burning building without oxygen. You'll suffocate before you save anyone. This brings us to the dark horse of EI, self-regulation. Imagine you're a teacher facing a rowdy classroom. Your amygdala screams, "Yell, threaten detention." But your prefrontal cortex, the EI powerhouse, interrupts. These kids are restless because it's the week of final exams. Breathe, redirect. A 2024 Stanford experiment showed that teachers trained in emotional regulation reduced classroom conflicts by 40%, simply by pausing to label their frustration before reacting. One participant shared, "Instead of snapping, stop talking, I started saying, 'I'm losing focus, let's reset.' Kids started apologizing and policing each other. It was witchcraft. Yet for all its power, EI remains wildly misunderstood. Pop culture paints it as a soft skill for therapists and HR managers. Wrong. Special Forces units now prioritize EI training over marksmanship. Why? Because a soldier who can detect subtle shifts in a village elder's tone might prevent a firefight. Diplomats use EI to decode hidden agendas in negotiations. Even AI engineers are studying EI to prevent chatbots from accidentally gaslighting users. As one MIT researcher noted, we're teaching machines emotional nuance while humans forget how to say, "I'm sorry," without an autocorrect prompt. But let's get personal. Think of a time someone's emotional intelligence disarmed you. Maybe a friend who cancelled plans but texted, "I'm overwhelmed, not avoiding you." Or a boss who said, "Your work's slipping. Are you okay?" Instead of slapping a warning on your desk. That's EI in action, the ability to address the why beneath the what. It's why emotionally intelligent people often seem lucky in relationships and careers. They're not. They've just learned to navigate the invisible currents that sink the rest of us. So what's the secret DNA of emotional intelligence? Is it something you're born with, like eye color or height? Can you hack it with an app? Or does it require years of therapy? The answer might surprise you. It's closer to learning a martial art than memorizing textbook definitions. And like any martial art, it begins with mastering your own body's reactions before you can engage with others. But here's the twist. Modern neuroscience has uncovered shortcuts that can fast-track this process, methods our ancestors couldn't have imagined. Imagine you're driving through a storm. The windshield wipers can't keep up with the rain, and your GPS keeps rerouting. Panic starts to rise until you remember your car has four-wheel drive. You grip the wheel, adjust your speed, and suddenly, what felt like chaos becomes manageable. Emotional intelligence works the same way. When life storms hit, the toxic coworker, the passive-aggressive text, the burnout creeping in, you don't need to white-knuckle through. You've got four hidden gears: self-awareness, self-regulation, empathy, and social skills. Together, they're not just tools. They're your vehicle for navigating human complexity without crashing. Let's start with self-awareness, the dashboard of your emotional GPS. Picture this. You're halfway through a Netflix binge when a notification pops up. Project deadline. Tomorrow, 9 a.m. Your chest tightens. Your jaw clenches. You might have spiraled into guilt, slammed the laptop shut, or worse, mindlessly clicked next episode to numb the anxiety. Self-aware you pause. You notice the tension, name it. I'm procrastinating because I'm scared I'll fail. And realize this isn't laziness. It's fear masquerading as inertia. A 2024 Harvard study found that people who practice this simple name it to tame it technique reduce procrastination by 34%. Why? Because labeling an emotion dims its power, like flipping on a light to disarm a shadow. Now shift gears to self-regulation, the brakes that keep you from emotional tailspins. Take Jason, a startup CEO who almost torched his company during an investor meeting. When a board member criticized his strategy, Jason's face flushed, his pulse raced. Pre-EI Jason would have interrupted, defended, maybe even stormed out. But that day, he did something radical. He sipped his water, let the silence hang for 3 seconds, and said, "I'm hearing this comes from concern about our growth. Let's unpack that." The room shifted. The critic became a collaborator. Jason's secret? A trick he learned from hostage negotiators. The tactical pause. By delaying his reaction by mere seconds, he bypassed his amygdala's fight-or-flight response and accessed his prefrontal cortex, the brain's wise advisor. Neuroscience shows this tiny gap between stimulus and response is where emotional maturity lives. Next up, empathy, the all-wheel drive that gets you through others' emotional terrain. Notice we didn't say agreeing or fixing. Real. Empathy is sitting with someone in their mess without rushing to tidy it. Like when a team member snaps, "This project is pointless." Low EI leaders hear rebellion. High EI leaders hear exhaustion. At a tech firm in Austin, managers started replacing "that's not how we do things" with "tell me more about your frustration." The result? A 40% drop in turnover. One developer confessed, "When my boss said, 'This rollout has been brutal on you, hasn't it?' I actually cried." Nobody had acknowledged the toll. Empathy isn't about being a therapist. It's about being a translator, decoding the unsaid needs behind words. Finally, social skills, the steering that lets you navigate relationships without veiling your truth. Think of the last time you bit your tongue to keep the peace. Social skills aren't about suppressing conflict. They're about resolving it with grace. Take Maria, a nurse who dreaded confrontations with a dismissive doctor. Instead of avoiding him or blowing up, she tried a disarming script. "I notice we have different approaches. I want to align so we can both win. What's your top priority here?" The doctor blinked, then laughed. "No one's ever asked me that." They co-created a handoff system that reduced errors by 25%. Maria's magic. She treated the conflict as a puzzle, not a battle. But here's where most crash, treating these pillars as solo acts. True EI is the synergy between them. Like a chef balancing flavors, you blend self-awareness. "I'm defensive because this feedback stung," with empathy, "but my boss is stressed about quotas." And social skills. "Can we revisit this after I process?" The CEO from our earlier example didn't just host touchy-feely check-ins. She built a system where her team could voice fears without derailing productivity. One engineer shared, "When I said I'm stuck because I'm terrified of breaking the codebase, our CTO didn't judge. She said, Let's pair program so the weight isn't all on you. That trust cut our bug rate in half. Yet, here's the twist Goleman never mentioned. These pillars aren't fixed. They're muscles that atrophy or strengthen with use. A 2023 Cambridge study proved it. Participants who journaled one emotion daily for 8 weeks rewired their brains to detect micro-expressions 20% faster. Another group practicing reaction delays, like Jason's tactical pause, became 35% less likely to escalate conflicts. This isn't personality, it's practice. So where do most stumble? They skip the foundation, self-awareness, and jump straight to fixing others. It's like slapping a band-aid on a wound you haven't cleaned. Ever met someone who's great at reading rooms but clueless about their own toxic patterns? That's EI without self-awareness, a car with no driver. Which brings us back to you. Think of a recent friction point, a fight, a misunderstanding, a quiet resentment. Which pillar could have changed the outcome? Maybe naming your jealousy before accusing your partner of neglect, or sensing your friend's withdrawal wasn't about you but grief. This isn't about perfection, it's about progress. Because every time you choose curiosity over certainty, pause over impulse, courage over comfort, you're not just building emotional intelligence, you're building a world where loneliness doesn't stand a chance. Picture a high school classroom. In 2024, a teenager raises her hand not to answer a math problem, but to tell her teacher, "I need to step out. This conversation is triggering my RSD." The teacher nods, familiar with the term. 10 years ago, this might have been met with eye rolls or detention. Today it's a sign of something seismic. Gen Z isn't just talking about emotions, they're weaponizing psychological vocabulary to navigate a world older generations built without their consent. Words like gaslighting, boundaries, and trauma dumping aren't buzzwords to them. They're survival tools sharper than any app algorithm. Take trauma dumping, a term that exploded on TikTok, clocking over 800 million views. To boomers, it might sound like oversharing. To Gen Z, it's a vital distinction between connection and emotional landfill. Imagine two friends at a coffee shop. One starts venting about their toxic boss. Healthy venting? "I'm so frustrated. He took credit for my project again." Trauma dumping? A 20-minute monologue detailing every abusive email, childhood, neglect, and existential dread without pausing to ask, "Is this okay to share?" Gen Z's response: setting boundaries with surgical precision. "I want to support you, but I'm not in the headspace for heavy talk tonight." Brutal? Maybe. But as one 19-year-old put it, "If I don't guard my energy, I'll have nothing left for my midterms or myself." This linguistic revolution isn't without backlash. Scroll through Twitter and you'll find hot takes accusing Gen Z of therapy speak as a cop-out. Critics argue that terms like triggered have morphed from safeguarding trauma survivors to shielding fragile egos. Case in point, a viral Reddit thread where a manager shared firing an employee for chronic missed deadlines. The employee's defense? "You're triggering my ADHD, this is ableist." The manager's counter: "Accommodations require dialogue, not ultimatums." Psychologists call this the accountability paradox, using clinical terms to deflect, not heal. A 2023 Stanford study found that 43% of Gen Zers admit to weaponizing therapy jargon to avoid tough feedback. Yet the same study revealed a darker truth. Those who misuse these terms are 3x more likely to feel isolated. Why? Because mistaking vulnerability for victimhood builds walls, not bridges. But let's flip the lens. For every teen crying toxic after a minor disagreement, there's a young worker dismantling decades of silence. Consider quiet quitting. Boomers frame it as laziness. Gen Z reframes it as boundary setting. My worth isn't defined by hustle culture. Or gaslighting, once a niche clinical term, now a shield against manipulative partners who say, "You're too sensitive." A 24-year-old abuse survivor posted, "Calling it gaslighting didn't fix my marriage, but it helped me leave without guilt." Language for Gen Z isn't just communication. It's cartography, mapping emotional minefields so others don't have to bleed through the same wounds. The irony: Gen Z's EI fluency was forged in fire. The pandemic's crucible. Lockdowns forced them to articulate loneliness in group chats, decode anxiety through screens, and negotiate consent in Zoom friendships. A 2024 Pew Research study found that 68% of Gen Zers credit pandemic isolation with making them emotionally bilingual, able to toggle between raw feelings and clinical labels. Compare that to millennials, only 42% of whom felt the same. The difference? Gen Z didn't just survive the pandemic, they documented it in real time. TikTok diaries, Discord vents, Instagram infographics, turning collective trauma into a crowdsourced EI masterclass. Yet this evolution has casualties. Traditionalists mourn the death of nuance, fearing boundaries become barriers. A college professor lamented, "Students demand trigger warnings for Shakespeare." But isn't discomfort where growth lives? Here's the rub. Gen Z isn't avoiding discomfort. They're demanding consent around it. Think of it as emotional OSHA, ensuring psychological safety before diving into hard labor. A 22-year-old put it bluntly, "If you spring trauma on me unannounced, that's not deep talk. That's dumping your baggage in my lap and expecting me to carry it." So where's the line between empowerment and entitlement? Between clarity and rigidity? The answer lies in intent. Are these terms a bridge, "I need space to process," or a battering ram, "Your opinion is toxic"? A 2024 Harvard experiment revealed that teams using EI language with curiosity, "Help me understand your boundary here," resolved conflicts 50% faster than those using it as armor. That's a microaggression. The takeaway? Words matter, but so does the humility to ask, am I communicating to connect or to control? This brings us to the heart of Gen Z's EI revolution. They're not just redefining how we speak about emotions. They're exposing how recklessly we've spoken or not spoken for decades. Before trigger warnings, there were veterans silenced about PTSD. Before gaslighting, there were wives told they were hysterical. Gen Z's blunt vocabulary holds up a mirror to generations who buried pain in platitudes. The backlash isn't about their words, it's about our discomfort with being seen. But here's what no one's asking. What happens when this hyper-verbal generation collides with a world still fluent in suppression? When trauma-informed meets suck it up? The answer lies in the seismic shifts already underway. HR departments hiring boundary coaches, schools replacing detention with emotional literacy modules, even AI therapists trained on Gen Z's lexicon to avoid phrases like, "Don't worry, love it or hate it, this isn't a trend, it's a tectonic reset, and it's rewriting the rules of human connection in real time." You're on your 5th Zoom call of the day. A colleague's voice crackles through your laptop speakers. The client needs this by EOD. Your brow furrows. Wait, was that a demand or a plea? You glance at their frozen video tile, but their camera's off. No facial cues, no posture. Clues, just a pixelated avatar and a sentence that could mean anything. You type a terse reply. "Understood." They fire back. "Is there a problem?" Suddenly, you're in a standoff neither of you intended. Welcome to the era of post-pandemic social atrophy, where our ability to read human nuance is rusting from disuse. A 2024 Gallup report paints a grim picture. 67% of remote teams report chronic miscommunication, with conflicts lasting 40% longer than pre-pandemic. Why? We've lost the muscle memory of face-to-face interaction. Think about it. In office, you'd catch your boss's exasperated sigh during a meeting and adjust your pitch. You'd notice a co-worker's slumped shoulders and offer coffee instead of criticism. Now, we're decoding tone from ellipses and emoji-less Slack messages. A neuroscientist from UC Berkeley explains, text strips away 93% of emotional context. Our brains aren't wired for this ambiguity. It's like trying to smell colors. Take EI Mondays, a radical experiment by a Silicon Valley tech firm. Every Monday, employees are banned from email and messaging apps. All communication happens via voice or video calls. The result? A 70% drop in conflicts and a 25% spike in productivity. But here's the twist. The rule wasn't about efficiency, it was about rebuilding atrophied social muscles. One developer shared, "The first Monday I had to call a teammate I'd been side-eyeing over Slack. Hearing his voice when he said, 'I'm swamped too,' changed everything. I realized he wasn't slacking, he was drowning." This isn't just about work. It's about how 2 years of isolation rewired our social DNA. During lockdowns, we replaced hallway chats with Zoom happy hours, mistaking FaceTime for FaceTime. But as a 2023 MIT study revealed, video calls fatigue the brain 30% faster than in-person talks. Why? Our neurons exhaust themselves scanning frozen faces for micro-expressions that never come. The result? A workforce fluent in Zoom etiquette, but illiterate in emotional subtext. Managers misinterpret silence as agreement. Colleagues read brevity as hostility. A project lead confessed, "I almost quit over a Slack thread where my boss wrote, 'Fix this.' Turns out she meant, 'This is great, tweak this one thing.' But without her smile, I spiraled for days. The fallout extends beyond offices. Couples who weathered lockdowns now stumble over text arguments that escalate into "we need space" ultimatums. Friendships fray over misinterpreted Instagram stories. Even parenting has changed. Toddlers raised on masked interactions struggle to read facial expressions, a phenomenon speech therapists call COVID face blindness. A kindergarten teacher in Chicago observed, "Kids don't recognize anger. Unless someone's yelling, they'll ask, why is your mouth scrunching when I'm just concentrating?" But here's the kicker. Some thrive in this detached world. Introverts report less burnout. Neurodivergent employees find solace in written communication. A software engineer with social anxiety shared, "Remote work let me shine. But now, my team's pushing return to office for culture. It feels like forcing left-handed kids to write right-handed." This is the tightrope of post-pandemic EI, balancing the needs of the overstimulated and the underconnected. Enter EI Mondays. Beyond reducing conflicts, the policy unearthed a hidden crisis: emotional illiteracy. During calls, employees kept asking, "Wait, are you mad? Or was that sarcasm?" Teams started beginning meetings with mood weather reports. "I'm a 6'10", partly cloudy with a chance of frustration." Slowly, they relearned the vocabulary of tone, pause, and breath. The CEO admitted, "We thought we were fixing communication. Turns out we were rehabbing humanity." Yet the fix isn't simple. Forcing cameras on? Studies show it backfires, breeding resentment. Mandating office days? Many quit. The solution lies in intentional reconnection, not nostalgia for 2019. Like a pianist practicing scales after years away, we must retrain our social senses. Start small. Replace 3 emails with calls this week. Notice how your teammate's voice lifts when they're excited. Pay attention to the sigh before their "I'm fine." The pandemic didn't just change how we work. It changed who we are in ways we're still unraveling. But here's the hope. Social muscles can regrow. That tech firm's employees now host EI gym sessions, role-playing miscommunications. Say, "This isn't working" in 3 different tones. One participant laughed, "I finally get why my wife says I sound like a robot when I text Kay." So the next time you're trapped in a Slack spiral, ask, "Would this land better voice to voice?" Chances are the answer's yes, because behind every curt message is a human craving connection, not more screen-induced static. You're lying in bed at 2 a.m., heart racing after another nightmare. No one's awake to call, so you open an app. A chatbot greets you. "I'm here to listen. What's keeping you up?" You type a fragmented confession, fear of layoffs, a crumbling friendship, the dread of being stuck forever. Seconds later it responds, "That sounds incredibly hard." You're showing courage by confronting these feelings. For a moment it works. Your shoulders relax. Then comes the gut punch. This isn't a person. The comfort is code. The empathy is an algorithm. And you're left wondering, if a machine can simulate care this well, why do I feel emptier than before? This is the paradox of AI emotional labor. ChatGPT therapists, grief chatbots, even AI companions that send "Good morning, beautiful" texts, they're booming. A 2024 Stanford study found that 38% of adults under 30 prefer venting to AI over friends. Why? No judgment, no reciprocity, no risk. But here's what the apps don't tell you. Every time we outsource vulnerability to machines, we're not just dodging awkward conversations. We're eroding the neural pathways that make us human. Dr. Lena Choi, an AI ethicist, puts it starkly. Emojis and chatbots are emotional fast food, convenient, addictive, and nutritionally void. We're raising a generation that thinks a loudly crying face substitutes for a tear-soaked pillow and a heart on fire replaces passion. But you can't automate the alchemy of real connection. Take emoji-only relationships. Couples now resolve fights through a pleading face, a right-pointing finger, a left-pointing finger, a broken heart, a fire, and a hammer and wrench, bypassing messy conversations. Friends send a hug instead of showing up. Bosses use a thumbs up and a thumbs down to dodge feedback. The result? A 2023 UCLA study found that emoji-reliant communicators are 3x more likely to misinterpret sarcasm as hostility. Why? Because a pouting face can't convey the tremor in your voice when you say, "I'm furious, but I still love you." An AI-generated "you've got this" can't mirror the warmth of your mom's hands squeezing yours. These shortcuts aren't bridges, they're crutches. And crutches over time atrophy the muscles they're meant to support. But here's where it gets thorny. AI is learning emotional nuance. Replica bots now detect user sadness through typing speed. ChatGPT adapts responses based on your lexical fingerprints. If you use anxious instead of stressed, it notes the difference. One widower shared how his AI companion remembered his late wife's favorite flower and gifted him a digital garden on her birthday. He wept, conflicted. "It felt like a ghost caring for me." This isn't sci-fi. It's the new frontier of emotional outsourcing. And it's forcing us to ask, if machines can mimic empathy better than humans, what's left of our value? The answer lies in reclaiming what makes us irreplaceable. Machines can't blush when they lie. They can't feel the gut punch of regret after snapping at a friend. They'll never know the electric thrill of a reconciliation hug. These messy, raw, embodied experiences aren't bugs in the human system. They're features. A kindergarten teacher in Tokyo proved this when she replaced her classroom's emotion chart AI with old-fashioned face-to-face check-ins. At first, kids struggled. They'd say, "I'm green" instead of "I'm sad." But within weeks, they were describing feelings like sparkly disappointment and quiet bravery. AI gives labels. Humans give poetry. So how do we fight back? Not by smashing chatbots, but by relearning emotional craftsmanship. It starts with trading emoji strings for voice notes, where your breath catches mid-sentence. It means asking, "Can I vent?" before trauma dumping, and hearing "not today" without taking it personally. It's resisting the lure of AI's 24/7 availability to preserve the sacredness of human presence. Because you can't automate the healing power of a friend saying, "I cancelled my plans." Talk. The revolution is already brewing. Support. Groups are hosting analog nights. No phones, just shared silence and eye contact. Therapists assign vulnerability push-ups. Text a friend one unedited feeling daily. Even corporations are catching on. A German tech giant replaced its AI mental health chatbot with empathy hours, where employees volunteer to listen to colleagues. No advice, just witness. The CEO admitted, productivity dipped at first, then trust skyrocketed. Turns. How'd humans fix bugs faster when they feel seen? This isn't about shunning technology. It's about recalibrating. Use ChatGPT to draft emails, not process grief. Let AI handle schedules, not soul-searching. And when you're tempted to send a heart emoji, ask, "Is this a placeholder for love? I'm too scared to voice." The bots will keep evolving. But our superpower remains the same. Flawed, glorious, felt humanity. Now the real work begins. How do we upgrade our emotional intelligence in an age of artificial intimacy? The tools are simpler than you think, and they've been inside us all along. You're mid-argument with your partner. They just accused you of being checked out during last night's dinner. Your chest tightens, your pulse quickens. Every cell in your body screams to fire back. You're one to talk, you're always on your phone. But instead you do something radical. You hold up 2 fingers, whisper 2 minutes and walk away, not to stew, not to rehearse your comeback, but to stand at the kitchen sink, stare at the faucet, and silently name what's churning inside. "I'm hurt, embarrassed, scared this'll never change." When you return, the fight doesn't magically resolve, but something shifts. The venom drains from their voice. They sigh, "I didn't mean to attack you." This isn't relationship magic. It's neuroscience in action. The 2-minute rule, a deceptively simple tactic that rewires how conflict unfolds in your brain. Let's unpack why 120 seconds changes everything. When conflict erupts, your amygdala, the brain's ancient alarm system, floods your body with cortisol and adrenaline. This biological hijacking isn't a flaw. It's a survival relic designed to make you fight a bear or flee a predator. But modern bears are subtler. A partner's criticism, a boss's email, a friend's cancelled plan. Your amygdala can't tell the difference. It just knows you're under attack. Stanford neuroscientists discovered that taking a deliberate 2-minute pause reduces cortisol spikes by 25% and allows the prefrontal cortex, your brain's wise mediator, to re-engage. But there's a catch. You can't just wait out the clock, you have to name the storm inside. This is where most stumble. We confuse taking space with silent fuming. A nurse named Clara learned this the hard way during COVID's peak. Working 16-hour shifts in the ICU, she'd come home to a husband equally drained by remote work. Their fights became landmines. One night, she recalls, he asked why I forgot to pay the electric bill. I snapped, maybe if you weren't glued to your laptop. He stormed out. I spent 20 minutes rehearsing why he was wrong. Then, she tried the 2-minute rule. Next argument, she fled to the bathroom, set a timer, and whispered aloud, I'm exhausted, resentful, terrified. I'm failing at everything. At 90 seconds, tears came. Returning, she said, I'm not. Okay, this is too much. He froze, then admitted, me neither. That night, they drafted a survival pact. No logistics talks after 8 p.m., just shared baths and silence. Clara's story isn't unique. A 2024 UC Berkeley study tracked 500 couples using the 2-minute rule. Those who labeled emotions aloud, I'm feeling defensive, not angry, repaired ruptures 60% faster than silent pauses. Why? Verbalizing feelings activates the brain's interoceptive network, the system that maps internal sensations. It's like giving your amygdala a GPS coordinate instead of letting it rage blindly. But here's the twist. The rule works even if you're wrong. Mislabeling fear as frustration still cools the neural fire. As one participant joked, my brain's like, wait, are we sad or hangry? Let's get a snack and regroup. The applications go beyond relationships. A teacher in Detroit uses micro-pauses during classroom meltdowns. When a student hurls a chair, she says, let's both breathe for 30 seconds. Those half minutes have cut office referrals by half. A CEO in Seoul mandates naming breaks before boardroom disputes. Instead of, this idea's stupid, we say, I'm anxious about the timeline. It transforms the room. Even toddlers can grasp it. A dad taught his 4-year-old to say, I need 2 minutes of mad before timeout. The key isn't perfection, it's interrupting the autopilot. Of reaction, but why 2 minutes? Neuroscience reveals it takes 120 seconds for an emotion to peak and pass. If unmetabolized, like a wave, it swells, crests, then recedes, unless we feed it with mental narratives. Think of a time you ruminated on an insult for hours. That wasn't one emotion. It was you hitting replay on the pain, restocking cortisol each time. The 2-minute rule breaks the loop by anchoring you in the body's present. I'm furious becomes, my jaw is clenched, my palms are sweating, and my stomach hurts. Bodily awareness tugs the brain from story to sensation, a portal, back to choice. Skeptics argue this is just counting to 10 repackaged. They're half right. Ancient wisdom meets modern MRI scans. Tibetan monks have practiced breath-focused pauses for millennia. Now we know why it works. Controlled breathing stimulates the vagus nerve, slamming the brakes on fight or flight. Pair that with emotion labeling, a technique validated by 2023 Johns Hopkins research, and you've got a neural reset button. Yet the rule's true power lies in its ripple effects. Clara's ICU team adopted pause protocols during codes. Instead of shouting matches over med doses, they'd declare, 2 minutes, let's recalibrate. Survival rates improved. Why? Stress clouds medical judgment. A calm brain spots solutions, a panicked one misses. Similarly, a study of 911 operators found those trained in micro-pauses made 40% fewer errors during crises. Their secret? Whispering self-checks like, I'm overwhelmed, focus between calls. This isn't about becoming a Zen master. It's about hacking your biology to choose responses over reactions. Start small. Next time a text triggers you, set the phone down. Say out loud, I'm feeling attacked. Then scan your body, racing heart, hot face. Breathe into those sensations for 120 seconds. You'll still need to address the issue, but you'll do it from higher ground, not quicksand. The 2-minute rule proves something revolutionary. You don't have to control your emotions. You just need to witness them long enough to stop being their puppet. And in a world that rewards snap judgments and hotter takes, that pause might be the most radical act of courage you'll ever practice. Picture a dimly lit room where an FBI negotiator faces a hostage taker. The air is thick with desperation. The suspect's arms are crossed, his jaw clenched. The negotiator doesn't plead or prod. Instead, she subtly mirrors his posture, leaning back slightly, matching the rhythm of his breath. Minutes pass. Then, the suspect uncrosses his arms. She does the same. He rubs his temple, she touches hers. No words are exchanged, but the tension cracks. He mutters, "I just want someone to listen." This isn't manipulation, it's mirroring. The silent language of trust that bypasses logic and speaks directly to the primal brain, and it's not reserved for life or death stakes. It works just as powerfully in school pickup lines, first dates, and tense Zoom calls. Mirroring is often misunderstood as imitation. Copy someone's gestures like a parrot, and you'll come off as creepy. But true mirroring is an art. It's synchronizing with someone's emotional wavelength through micro-signals, the tilt of a head, the pace of speech, even the way they hold a coffee cup. A 2024 study from Princeton found that strangers who unconsciously mirrored each other's body language reported feeling 40% more connected, even if they disagreed. The magic lies in the subconscious message, "I'm with you." Not, "I agree," not, "I surrender," just, "I see you and I'm here." Take parenting. A dad struggles with his defiant teen, who slouches on the couch, earbuds in, grunting one-word answers. Instead of towering over him, the dad sits on the floor, matching his son's slouched posture. He waits. The teen side-eyes him, then sighs, "You're blocking the TV." The dad doesn't move. Minutes later, the teen mumbles, "Oh, school sucks." The dad mirrors his tone, flat, resigned, and says, "Sounds like it's been rough." No advice. No, "when I was your age." Just presence. That night, the teen texts, "Can we talk about switching math teachers?" Mirroring isn't about fixing. It's about creating a bridge sturdy enough for truth to cross. But here's where most fail: mirroring the wrong element. A manager trying to soothe an angry employee might mirror their crossed arms, inadvertently escalating the standoff. The fix? Mirror energy, not gestures. If someone speaks softly, lower your volume. If they fidget, match their intensity with calm stillness. A hospice nurse shared how she comforts grieving families. "When they're crying, I don't hand tissues immediately. I slow my breathing to match theirs." It tells their nervous system, "You're not alone in this storm." The science behind this is rooted in our evolutionary wiring. Mirror neurons, the brain cells that fire when we watch someone else act, create a feedback loop of empathy. When you mirror effectively, you're not just reflecting behavior, you're activating the other person's neural pathways for safety. Stanford researchers found that patients mirroring their therapist's open posture reported 35% deeper self-disclosure. But this isn't a clinical tactic. It's how toddlers learn to smile, how lovers sync their strides, how strangers become allies in crowded subways. Yet mirroring has a dark side. Con artists and cult leaders weaponize it to build false trust. They'll parrot your words, mimic your hobbies, even adopt your laugh, all to lower your guard. The difference? Authentic mirroring is responsive, not scripted. It's not about erasing your identity to blend in. It's about temporary alignment to create space for connection. A diplomat once shared how she survived a hostile negotiation. The delegate kept interrupting. Instead of fighting, I matched his interruptions with pauses. He'd shout, I'd wait 3 beats, then reply calmly. By hour 3, he was pausing too. So how do you practice this without overthinking? Start with the voice. Next time someone vents, resist the urge to match their volume. If they're loud, soften your tone. If they're monotone, add gentle inflection. A teacher in Oslo uses this with rowdy teens. When the class gets chaotic, I whisper, they have to lean in to hear me. It's like casting a spell, but the most profound mirroring happens beyond the body. It's echoing someone's emotional core. When a friend says, I'm fine, but their voice cracks, you don't probe. You say fine can mean a lot of things, and wait. You hold space for the unsaid. This is mirroring at its purest, a dance of attention where someone's hidden. Self feels safe enough to step into the light. In a world addicted to quick fixes and louder opinions, mirroring is revolutionary. It says, I won't overpower you, I'll meet you where you are. And sometimes, that's all it takes to turn a standoff into a handshake, a stranger into a friend, a monologue into a dialogue. The bridge isn't built with words. It's built with the quiet courage to say without speaking, you're not alone. Imagine scrolling through TikTok late at night. Between dance trends and prank videos, a raw, unfiltered confession stops your thumb. I'm 24 and still scared of the dark. The hashtag vulnerability challenge glows in the corner. You click. Suddenly, your screen floods with strangers' secrets. I pretend to be confident but feel like an imposter. I'm terrified my partner will leave if they see the real me. I haven't cried since my dad died. This isn't just oversharing. It's a cultural revolt against the highlight reels of social media, a generation scribbling their fears in digital ink, one vulnerable post at a time. Vulnerability journaling isn't new. Freud had his patients free associate on couches. Anne Frank documented her fears in a hidden attic. But TikTok's twist, public, communal, unpolished, has turned introspection into a team sport. The rules are simple. Write one raw truth daily, share it if you dare, and watch how your relationship with imperfection shifts. A 2023 study tracked 1,200 participants who tried this for 6 months. Those who journaled authentically, I'm jealous of my best friend's success, reported 35% higher relationship satisfaction than those who stuck to surface entries. Today was fine. Why? Because admitting your mess to yourself makes it safer to show it to others. Take Jake, a 19-year-old barista who joined the challenge on a whim. His first entry, I hate my tattoo, got it to impress a girl who ghosted me. He posted it expecting ridicule. Instead, comments poured in, I have a matching ex's initial LOL. You're brave for admitting that. Jake kept going. Entry 14, I'm scared I'll end up like my alcoholic dad. That night his mom texted, saw your video, me too. They now have Sunday coffee talks, no filters. Jake's story isn't unique. A college student shared, journaling. I'm lonely. Made me admit it to my roommate. We started game nights, now our dorm's the hangout spot. But here's the neuroscience kicker. Writing I'm scared of failure daily does more than vent emotions. It reprograms your brain's threat radar. UCLA researchers found that labeling fears in writing reduces amygdala activation by 22%, the same region that flares during panic attacks. Think of it as exposure therapy via pen and paper. Each time you write, I'm not good enough, you're teaching your brain, this thought isn't a predator, it's just weather. Over time, the storms feel less life-threatening. Critics argue this breeds narcissism, a generation obsessed with their inner worlds. But the data tells a different story. Participants in the 2023 study became 40% more likely to ask others, how are you really, after weeks of journaling. It's as if practicing self-honesty tunes your ear to others' unspoken truths. A teacher in Minnesota saw this firsthand. After starting vulnerability journals with her students, fights dropped by half. They'd write, I bullied Jay because he reminds me of my brother, then apologize unprompted. It was like watching empathy boot camp. Yet the real magic happens off-screen. A couple on the brink of divorce tried shared journaling. No edits, just passing a notebook. Entry 1. I resent how you prioritize work. Entry 2. I'm drowning in guilt for failing you. By week 3, they were writing, remember our first apartment? Let's find that us again. Their therapist called it the cheapest marriage counseling on earth. This isn't about dumping trauma into the void, it's precision work. The vulnerability challenge trend thrives on specifics. I'm sad gets ignored. I'm sad because my cat's purr used to calm my panic attacks goes viral. Nuance forces you to dissect emotions, not just name them. A war veteran shared how detailing his PTSD flashbacks, the smell of diesel makes my hands shake, helped his wife stop saying just relax and start asking, can I hold your hands when we pass trucks? Of course it's messy. Not every entry ends in breakthroughs. Some posts get mean comments, others fade unnoticed. But the act itself, showing up, writing ugly truths, hitting post or slamming the journal shut, builds emotional muscle. Like lifting weights for the soul, each entry makes you stronger at carrying life's uncertainties. So why does this work where traditional journals fail? The answer's in the shared risk. Writing I'm a fraud in a private diary is one thing. Posting it online, even anonymously, whispers to the world, I'm human. Are you? That whisper often echoes back, me too. And in that echo, loneliness crumbles. The revolution isn't perfect. Some exploit it for clout, turning pain into content. Others trauma dump without consent. But at its core, vulnerability journaling is a rebellion against the lie that we must suffer in silence. It's choosing to believe that our worst thoughts, aired in the light, lose their power to poison us, and that our bravest confession might be the lifeline someone else needed to write theirs. Imagine swiping right on a dating profile that seems too good to be true. Their bio reads, "Seeking deep connections, not games." The first message isn't a lazy hey, but a novel-length question. What's the bravest thing you've ever done? Flattered, you open up about quitting your job to pursue art. They respond, "You're so rare. Most people are too scared to be real." Weeks later, you're sharing childhood traumas over wine, their eyes locked on yours as they whisper, "No one gets me like you." It feels like intimacy. It's actually a playbook, a predator weaponizing emotional intelligence to hijack your trust. This is the dark underbelly of EI, faux empathy as a hunting tactic. Love bombing, showering. Someone with intense affection early on isn't romance. It's emotional arson, designed to burn down boundaries. A 2023 study in the Journal of Interpersonal Violence found that 68% of dating app predators use deep questions to fast-track false intimacy. They don't want your answers, they want your dependency. Dr. Rebecca Hartman, a clinical psychologist, specializing in coercive control, explains, "Manipulators study vulnerability like a script. They'll mirror your dreams, validate your pain, then gaslight you into doubting reality. Your overreacting becomes, 'I'm saying this because I care.' Take Lauren, a 27-year-old teacher who met Adam on Hinge. He praised her passion for education, sent articles about school funding, and listened to her vent about burnout. Within a month, he'd isolated her from friends, citing, 'They don't appreciate you like I do.' When she questioned his possessiveness, he tearfully confessed childhood abandonment, a tactic known as trauma baiting. Lauren stayed, thinking, 'He needs me.' By the time she found his identical texts to 3 other women, her self-trust was ash. Gaslighting disguised as care is the predator's signature move. Imagine a partner who notices your social anxiety, then protectively suggests skipping your best friend's wedding. When you protest, they sigh, 'I'm just worried you'll regret it, but you know best.' The doubt seeds bloom into, 'Maybe they're right.' Over time, your instincts erode. A 2024 University of Chicago study revealed that victims of emotional manipulation show neural patterns similar to PTSD sufferers. Their prefrontal cortexes, the decision-making hub, literally shrink under sustained gaslighting. But predators aren't just romantic partners. They're bosses who say, 'I'm tough on you because I see your potential,' while undermining your promotions. Friends who jokingly mock your insecurities, then play victim. 'I'm just honest. You're so sensitive.' Even family. Members who weaponize therapy terms, setting boundaries. Must be nice to not care about family. The common thread, exploiting emotional literacy to confuse, not connect. So how do you spot the wolves in empathy's clothing? Red flags hide in patterns, not single acts. Love bombing escalates to "you're my soulmate" within weeks. They resent your outside relationships, but demand 24/7 access to yours. Their support always serves their agenda, like a partner who champions your sobriety, then pressures you to drink just this once. Dr. Hartman notes, healthy EI respects consent. Manipulators treat no as a challenge to bypass. Protection starts with trusting the itch beneath the fairy tale. That nagging sense their depth feels rehearsed. The way their vulnerabilities always loop back to your obligations. The whiplash between "you're perfect" and "you're failing me." Listen to the friends who say, "He's love bombing you," even when it stings. Practice the 2-minute rule mid-conversation. If naming your feelings, "I'm confused," pressured, spikes anxiety around them, heed that signal. This isn't about cynicism, it's about discernment. Genuine emotional intelligence doesn't rush, manipulate, or isolate. It grows slowly, respects no, and celebrates your autonomy. As you learn to wield EI, remember, the same skills that build bridges can be twisted into cages, but knowledge is your skeleton key. Picture a teacher's lounge at 3 p.m. Sunlight slants through dusty blinds as Ms. Carter, a 3rd grade teacher, locks herself in the supply closet. Her hands tremble around a cold coffee. Through the door, she hears a student wailing, "I hate you." The 3rd meltdown today. She wants to cry but can't. Numbness has set in. This isn't just exhaustion. It's empathy burnout. The silent epidemic gnawing at caregivers, nurses, parents, and anyone who's ever loved someone through chaos. Empathy burnout doesn't strike with drama. It creeps in, the slow erosion of feeling until you're pouring from an empty cup. A hospice nurse described it as watching your soul rust. A 2024 Mayo Clinic study found that 62% of caregivers experienced diminished empathy within 2 years, mistaking their numbness for failure. But here's the truth. They're never told. Empathy without boundaries isn't virtuous. It's self-destruction. Enter Maria, a single mom caring for her father with Alzheimer's. For months she absorbed his rage, his confusion, his midnight wanderings. I'd wake up screaming, she admits. Once I found myself Googling how to stop caring. Then her therapist prescribed empathy hours, a radical framework where Maria scheduled compassion-like meetings. From 9 a.m. to noon and 6 p.m. to 8 p.m., she'd be fully present. Outside those windows, she'd repeat, "This isn't my burden to carry," and call respite care. The first week felt like betrayal. By month 3, she could hold her father's hand without dissolving into guilt. "I realized," she says, "I wasn't abandoning him. I was teaching us both I'm human." The science behind this is stark. Empathy activates the anterior insular cortex, the brain's pain-sharing region. Chronic activation floods the body with stress hormones, shrinking the hippocampus memory center and impairing immune function. Compassion filters aren't selfish, they're biological triage. A paramedic put it bluntly, "If I bled every time a patient did, I'd die on shift 1. Same with emotions. But how do you build these filters without guilt? Start with the question, am I the right person to hold this?" A social worker shared her mantra, "Not my crisis, not my capacity." When a client's trauma triggers her own, she now says, "Let's find someone who can help you better." At first, she feared looking cold. Instead, clients trusted her more. They sensed I wasn't faking. Schools are catching on. A T. Brooklyn Elementary School replaced "Susie's always crying, comfort her" with "Tag in a buddy if your empathy battery dips." Teachers report fewer breakdowns and sharper focus. Even kids adapt. One first grader told her sobbing classmate, "I'm too tired to hug, but I'll sit here till Miss Lisa comes." The line between compassion and martyrdom is thin, but vital. Burnout isn't a badge of honor. It's a warning siren. When Maria's father called her at 2 a.m., she let it go to voicemail. The next morning, she learned he'd been asking for a childhood toy, a need the night nurse handled. "I used to think love meant suffering with him," she says. "Now, I see my job is to safeguard my capacity to care. This isn't about shutting down, it's about strategic love. A firefighter can't rescue everyone if they're choking on smoke. Likewise, you can't tend to others if you're drowning in their storms. Set your empathy hours. Practice the mantra, "I can care without carrying." And remember, the world needs you resilient, not ruined. You're staring at your phone, heart pounding. The text reads, "Sure, do whatever you want." 3 dots, no emojis. Is your partner hurt, sarcastic, indifferent? You replay yesterday's argument, wondering if this is peace or punishment. Hours later, you discover they meant it literally. They were driving and voice typed. But the damage is done. Welcome to the tone misinterpretation crisis, where texts morph into Rorschach tests for our deepest insecurities. A 2022 UCLA study confirmed what we've all felt. 80% of texts are misread. Why? Because digital communication strips away 93% of emotional context. The raised eyebrow, the hesitant pause, the softening gaze. Your brain, desperate to fill the void, mines your insecurities for clues. K becomes, "They're furious. We need to talk," spirals into breakup prophecies. Even period placements trigger panic. A full stop where a heart emoji once lived. Take Sarah and Mark. Sarah texted, "Can't make dinner, deadline hell." Mark replied, "Fine." Sarah read rejection. Mark meant, "I'm disappointed but understand." 3 days of icy texts later, they met in person. Sarah blurted, "Why have you been distant?" Mark looked baffled. "I sent a thumbs up sticker." The sticker had failed to load. This isn't just miscommunication. It's emotional autocorrect gone rogue. Your anxiety editing messages into worst-case drafts. The fix isn't abandoning texts, it's hacking their limitations. Replace K with "Got it, let's chat after your deadline," and swap "We need to talk" with "There's something I'm nervous to bring up, when's good." These aren't just niceties. They're psychological airbags cushioning the ambiguity our brains catastrophize. A 2024 Stanford experiment proved it. Couples who added context clues, stressed but listening, reduced conflict resolution time by 65%. But words alone aren't enough. Punctuation has become landmines. Ellipses now signal passive aggression more than hesitation. A period after thanks reads colder than thanks. The solution? Treat punctuation like salt. A little enhances flavor, too much ruins the dish. A teacher shared how she reformed parent communication. I stopped using periods in quick replies. Got it became got it. Saved me from 3 PTA meltdowns. Voice notes emerge as the unsung hero here. A 20-second clip captures what 20 texts can't. The sigh before "I'm overwhelmed," the chuckle softening criticism. When a graphic designer botched a client's logo, she sent a voice note. "I'm mortified, let's fix this tonight." The client replied, "Your tone said everything. Take till Monday." Text would have masked her remorse. Voice made it human, yet even voice has rules. Rambling 5-minute monologues overwhelm. The sweet spot? 30 seconds max, enough to convey heart, not hog airtime. And if you must text, borrow from Gen Z's tone checks. Add no rush after requests, or gentle ask before critiques. These digital stage directions guide others' interpretations like an emotional GPS. The real shift happens when we stop treating texts as conversations and start seeing them as telegrams, brief, urgent, and prone to error. Before hitting send, ask, would this land better voice to voice? Could a period be misread? Is adding mystery or misery? Your thumbs aren't mind readers, but with a few keystrokes of intentionality, you can turn digital minefields into bridges, one thoughtful let's chat later at a time. Imagine sending a heartfelt apology text after cancelling plans. You type, "I'm really sorry, work blew up," and tack on a crying, laughing emoji to lighten the mood. But instead of grace, your friend replies, "Glad my disappointment is funny to you." Confused? You've just collided with the invisible rules of digital nuance, where a single emoji can fracture trust or forge connection. Yale researchers discovered this the hard way. In a 2023 study analyzing 10,000 text exchanges, they found messages ending with the red heart emoji were rated 40% more sincere than those using the crying, laughing face. Why? The heart signals vulnerability. The laugh cry? Ambiguity. It's the difference between handing someone a handwritten note and shrugging, "Whatever." But emojis are just the tip of the iceberg. Voice notes, those mini audio diaries we blast into the digital void, have their own etiquette. Picture this. Your colleague sends a 5-minute ramble about project delays. Halfway through, you zone out, missing the key ask. Annoyed, you reply with a terse, "Noted." Sound familiar? A University of Texas study found that voice notes over 30 seconds trigger audio fatigue, making listeners 70% more likely to misinterpret intent. Contrast that with a crisp 20-second clip. "Hey, the client's pushing the deadline. Can we regroup at 3? Let me know." Clear, human, respectful of your time. The key lies in balancing warmth with precision. Take dating apps. A 2024 survey revealed profiles using the heart eyes emoji receive 35% more matches than those peppered with winks or peaches. But overdo it, and you enter cringe territory. One user admitted, "I sent 3 heart emojis in a row. She unmatched me. Felt like I'd shouted, 'I love you' on a first date." Similarly, professionals who use the thumbs up emoji in Slack risk seeming dismissive. A project manager shared, "I replaced thumbs up with 'got it, let's discuss,' and my team's morale skyrocketed." Voice notes thrive on a different currency, brevity as respect. A nurse described her shift change hack. "Instead of texting novels, I leave 30-second updates. Room 4's anxious, needs extra reassurance. You've got this." It's like passing a baton, not a burden. Compare that to a realtor who bombarded clients with 10-minute property monologues. They switched agents, citing audio overload. The digital age demands we become bilingual, fluent in both symbols and sound. It's not about memorizing rules, but cultivating awareness. Before hitting send, ask, "Does this emoji clarify or confuse? Would my tone land better spoken?" And always listen to your message aloud. That awkward pause where you ummed for 3 seconds, that's the sound of your credibility leaking out. Master this and you'll transform digital noise into connection, one intentional heart, one concise voice memo at a time. You're sitting on opposite ends of the couch, the air still crackling from last night's fight. They say, "I'm sorry you felt that way." And suddenly the room feels smaller. You've heard this script before, the apology that's not an apology, the kind that swaps accountability for loopholes. Now imagine a different scene. Your partner turns to you, eyes steady, and says, "I messed up, I shut you out when you needed me, I'll do better." No buts, no blame shifting, just raw ownership. That's the art of repair, a skill as rare as it is revolutionary. True apologies aren't about groveling or grand gestures. They're built on two pillars: I was wrong, and I'll make it right. Take the CEO of a global skincare brand who discovered their natural products contained synthetic dyes. Instead of hiding behind PR jargon, she posted a video saying, "We lied, we got greedy. Every affected customer gets a refund and reformulated products on us." Sales initially tanked, then trust surged. Within a year, they outpaced competitors. Why? Because her apology didn't just acknowledge harm, it invested in repair. But here's where most fail: the "but" virus. "I'm sorry I yelled, but you provoked me. I regret missing your recital, but works insane." That tiny word erases accountability like bleach on ink. A 2023 Harvard study found that "but" apologies reduce forgiveness by 73%. Why? They signal the apologizer cares more about their image than your pain. Contrast this with a nurse who botched a patient's meds. She told the family, "I failed to double check. I've enrolled in a safety course. How can I support you now?" The family later wrote, "Her honesty made rage impossible." The yay. Neuroscience is clear. Sincere apologies activate the prefrontal cortex, the brain's reasoning center, in both parties. It's why "I'll fix it" disarms defensiveness. A teacher who snapped at a student tried this. After class, she said, "I lost my cool, that's on me. Tomorrow I'll start with a breathing exercise. Want to join?" The student began leading the exercises herself. Yet, cultural myths plague apologies. Some fear admitting fault invites attack. Others confuse remorse with weakness. But watch toddlers. When one snatches a toy, a genuine "sorry, here your turn" often mends the rift instantly. We unlearn this simplicity as adults, armoring up with excuses. Relearning requires courage, the kind a firefighter showed after accidentally flooding a family's home during a drill. He didn't blame protocols. He showed up weekends to repaint, telling the homeowners, "Let me earn your trust, so next time you rupture a connection, ask, am I apologizing to heal or to hush? Are my actions realigning with my words?" And when receiving an apology, note if their eyes soften before their mouth opens. True remorse radiates beyond syllables. It's in the follow-through, the changed habits, the quiet determination to never let that wound reopen. Because in the end, we're all just clumsy humans fumbling through love and work. But with each honest "I'll do better," we sand down the sharp edges of our mistakes. And sometimes what emerges is a bond stronger than before the break. Picture a playground at recess. Two toddlers reach for the same toy. One bursts into tears, arms outstretched to a teacher. Another retreats silently, eyes downcast. A third giggles, offering a different toy instead. These moments, tiny, fleeting, hold the blueprint for how we'll love, argue, and connect decades later. Your attachment style, forged in those early years, isn't just a psychological label. It's the invisible hand shaping every "I'm fine," every slammed door, every hesitant "I need you." Secure attachment forms in the cradle of consistency. A baby cries, a caregiver soothes. Over time, the brain learns, my needs matter, help is coming. These kids become adults who voice feelings without panic, trust without obsession, and navigate conflict like captains, not hostages. But life's not always that steady. Anxious attachment brews when care flickers like a faulty bulb, sometimes bright, often dark. A child clings, fearing abandonment if they blink. Grown, they're the partners rereading texts for hidden slights, the friends triple-checking, "Are we okay?" Avoidant attachment? That's the child who learns tears earn silence, so they master self-reliance. Adults now, they're the "I'm fine" automatons, fluent in emotional shorthand but illiterate in deeper needs. The kicker? These styles wire our emotional intelligence from the ground up. Anxious types excel at reading micro-expressions, a survival skill honed scanning unpredictable caregivers. Avoidance developed top-tier self-regulation, numbing emotions that once went unanswered. Secure folks? They're the EQ gold standard, balancing self-awareness and social grace. But here's the twist. No style is destiny. A 2024 Cambridge study found that 68% of adults shifted their attachment patterns through intentional practice. No time machines required. Take Lena, a lawyer who dated like a hawk circling prey. If a guy didn't text back fast, I'd spiral, she admits. Therapy revealed her anxious blueprint, a childhood of split custody, never sure whose house held comfort. She began naming her panic. This feels like mom's empty driveway, before reacting. Slowly, she rewired her EI from crisis mode to curiosity. Now she jokes, I still check my phone, but to mute it during dates. Or Dev, a chef whose avoidance streak turned his kitchen into a no-feeling zone. I'd yell focus if someone got emotional, he says. A mentor challenged him. What if weakness is just hunger you've ignored? Dev started asking staff, what do you need? A question he'd never been asked. His team's creativity and loyalty soared. These stories aren't miracles. They're proof that emotional intelligence is less about fixing yourself than befriending your wiring. Anxious attachers can channel their radar-like intuition into empathy. Avoidance can leverage their calm into steady leadership. And secure folks, they're the glue if they avoid complacency. But here's the real magic. Understanding your attachment style isn't a life sentence. It's a decoder ring for your relational DNA. When you snap, I don't need help, is that true independence? Or a 4-year-old's vow to never cry again? When you obsess over a partner's tone, are you protecting your heart or replaying an old tape of neglect? The answer lies not in judgment, but compassion. Your brain's been running on ancient software, time for an update. Imagine waking up to a world where I need you feels like strength, not surrender. Where conflict isn't a war, but a dance of repair. That world's closer than you think, and it starts with rewriting the code your younger self never chose. Stay tuned, because next time we're diving into the ultimate emotional hack, reshaping your attachment style in just 30 days. No therapy couch required, just courage, curiosity, and maybe a journal. Your future self is already thanking you.